Alright, guys, so today we're going to be talking about The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 2. Warning, 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 there are alarms, like there are alarms at the beginning of this episode. Reference. That's really stupid, I apologize. I am going to be spoiling not just this episode, but I am also going to be talking about this from the perspective of somebody who's played the game The Last of Us Part 2. So, just warning, there are probably going to be spoilers for like the season that is to come because I might reference something from the game that would in turn spoil the rest of this season, as well as season 3 for that matter. So I just like to put that out there because I just don't feel like censoring myself. I believe in free speech. No, I'm kidding. Anyways, let's get into it. So the episode starts off with Abby flashback. There's like a dual Abby situation here. She's schizophrenic. She's talking to herself. I don't like it. I mean, I already talked about this in my review of the first episode, but I think that the point of The Last of Us Part 2 is for the death of Joel to happen, and then we, as the gamers, and I guess in this case, we as the audience, we like feel the shock, the impact, we feel grief, we feel hatred, and we want nothing but revenge for the death of Joel, and we are just dead set on our mission to kill Abby. And then I feel like after the point, after Abby and Ellie have their first conflict, then you start playing as Abby, and at that point you start empathizing with her, right? It's like getting you all in on board with Ellie's like quest for revenge, only to then, once you're about to get it, then the game forces you to empathize with Abby. Like that's the whole journey that The Last of Us 2 is trying to take you on. And I just feel like giving us all this information about Abby before the death of Joel just completely neuters that intentionality of the game story. And it kind of just turns this into a more boring version of it, in my opinion. So I don't like it. I get why they did it. They're trying to make this story more palatable because of how divisive the game was. Or at least I assume that's the reason. I suppose I could be wrong, but that's what it feels like the reason is, and I think it's kind of lame. So there's that. Although I will say, we do get a flashback in the game of Abby going and discovering her dad dying, although I don't think we ever get her talking to herself, so that's a new thing in the show. Kind of similarly to the game, if I remember correctly, I think her friends are kind of like hesitant about it. They don't necessarily want to be doing this so much as, or definitely not as much as Abby. So I do like that tension, that constant tension in this episode, just in general. But I like that there's tension between Abby and her friends. I like that her friends aren't as completely just Terminator evil like Abby is, where they're like they want revenge, but they're also not completely on board, and they would have bailed without Abby once they saw the town. This is kind of a side note, not important really, but I liked how cold this episode looked. These actors really sold how cold this was. Like, I don't know, and it's during a blizzard, and they really sold it. Like I was watching this shit like, damn, that looks really fucking cold. This was another interaction that I'm like, it's almost like one-to-one like the game, but there are these like weird subtle differences. If you can't tell by the image, it's when Ellie tells Jesse that she kissed Dina, and it's like it plays out almost just like the game, but with subtle differences. The performances are like a little different, and it's like whenever the show does things that are like almost just like the game, but then changes it in slightly different ways, it almost makes it hard for me to judge them, where I'm like, I don't know if this doesn't hit as hard, or if this interaction is a little stilted, or if I've just played the game So this feels different, and that makes me uncomfortable. I can't really tell because when I was watching this, I was like, "Is this?" I feel like their banter here isn't quite working. It's not quite as funny or well done. But again, I genuinely can't tell if that's just because I remember how it was in the game, and so it being slightly different is just like unnerving to me. This is another thing that I don't love, right? Like this whole thing of Ellie reaffirming her relationship with Joel. It's just like, okay, again, it's just it's it's them trying to make this whole thing not feel as bad or I don't know. It just I just feel like the show just really goes out of their way to make the uncomfortable things less uncomfortable for the sake of the show, right? So that audiences can know that okay, yeah, Ellie's not actually like she doesn't actually hate Joel. She actually loves Joel. Although actually, hold on. I'm gonna catch myself here. If I remember correctly, in the game, you don't actually know that Ellie and Joel are fighting at the beginning of it. I think that's the case actually, if I'm remembering correctly. And so when you initially see Joel die in the game, you don't know that they've been fighting. That's not revealed until a bunch of flashbacks after the fact. I guess her reaffirming, actually, you know what? Hold on. I am reconsidering my position in real time. Ellie reaffirming her love for Joel actually makes the whole thing more tragic. You know what? Scratch that. I don't mind this change, or I don't mind this addition here because her essentially telling Jesse that she is going to reconnect with Joel actually adds to the tragedy. Just like the game, does this as well, but that just adds to the tragedy of the fact that Abby didn't just kill Joel. What's truly tragic about it is that Abby stole Ellie's chance to reconnect with Joel. That's you know what? Fair enough. I actually don't mind that scene where Abby is yelling at Jesse, and just like reaffirming her love for Joel. You know what? Listen, I am fair. Okay. You can't say I'm not fair. I like again another change that I don't mind is Tommy just being more prominent in general. They're really showing him being a leader in Jackson. They're showing him getting shit done. So yeah, Tommy's the goat. I like him a lot, and I like seeing him take on the zombies. He obviously fights the bloater and stuff. And yeah, he's like giving orders and stuff. I like it. I thought this scene was again like kind of just like a shot for shot of the game. Slight changes, so it's like I don't know if like it made me feel unnerved, just it being so close to the game. But then just these like slight changes where I'm like, I don't know, is this better? Is this worse? A little weird. Actually, one change that I do think I would say is an improvement is the fact that they take out the line from the game where Ellie calls the sandwiches that he gives them bigot sandwiches. And obviously the guy is bigoted, but is that a term that they would be using in a post-apocalyptic setting? Especially like she's like the next generation of people growing up within the apocalypse. Like, would the term bigoted be carried over? I will say it's one of those things where it's like people talk about woke this, woke that, yada yada yada. I don't think like a situation where a religious man is bigoted towards a lesbian girl, like that's not woke / bad, right? Like that's just a natural thing that would obviously happen, or that could happen in a situation like this. I just think that in a post-apocalyptic setting, using the term bigot just feels a little too our world seeping into their world. Like I don't know that it would actually make sense for that to be in Ellie's vernacular. So I actually kind of like that they took that out. And I will say this as well. In our world, I don't think that Ellie necessarily did anything wrong here. Like, I don't really care if you're apologizing to me. Like, you think that me being in a loving relationship with somebody that I love is a bad thing, a sin, right? Something that is akin to, like, I don't know, murdering a baby. Like, you think that what I'm doing is just as bad as that. That's fine if you think that. We don't need to have meaningful interactions, right? Like, I don't need to accept your apology. You don't even need to apologize to me. We can just. That's fine if you think that. We don't need to interact. However, again, in this, like, post-apocalyptic setting, it's like, all right, you probably shouldn't have beefs with people. It's like, I feel like everybody should be as united as possible. But morally speaking, I actually don't think that what she did there is even all that wrong. Again, this weed scene is different, and this whole the whole a lot of the episode is different, of course, right? Because Dina goes with Joel on patrol and then gets captured by Abby's crew, whereas in the game, it's Tommy and Joel that go on patrol. And then Ellie and Dina go on patrol themselves, and then I remember, then they have like sex in this weed place, and then Jesse comes and like disturbs them, right? Yeah, I remember. Yeah, so they completely changed things around. I don't mind. Whoops, sorry. I don't mind the fact that they changed all of this stuff. Like, it doesn't make it worse. In some cases, it makes it actually more interesting in some senses. So, a lot of the changes in this episode, I'm not like that mad. And in general, I'm not that mad at the changes. The main change that I don't like is just them trying to make Joel's death more palatable. It's like, you don't need to do that. I mean, I get why you're doing it, but doing that just neuters the effect and the intentionality of the story of The Last of Us Part 2, at least in my opinion. They keep on mentioning this Eugene guy, and I've heard that he was in the game, or at least I think he was in like or from what I've heard, I think he was in like a lot of the like diaries and stuff that you find throughout the world describing Eugene. I'll be honest, I don't really remember him. So I don't really know what he's about, but I know that people are excited that the show is probably going to show us more about this Eugene guy. So we'll see what he's about in the future episodes, but he actually created the weed lab, which is fun. I will say the zombies in this episode, pretty terrifying, especially this scene here where like Abby falls down a cliff or something. Or what would it be, a hill? A hill. She like falls down a hill, and then it's like the zombies are just like frozen in the snow. And then as they sense her, they're just like slowly becoming more alive. Genuinely terrifying stuff. I mean, this episode is just like so well made, just from a production standpoint. It's like just like a blockbuster television at its finest. And yeah, like this stuff is like right out of the game, where like Abby's having to crawl from the fences and the zombies are like getting through the fences. There's like this one scene where like a zombie's hand is like trying to like reach through the fence, and it like pressures it so much that the fence starts cutting through his hand, which is like, eh. You know, when I was watching, I was like, eh. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure this like zombie fungus signal thing that launches an attack on Jackson, like none of that happens in the game, I don't think, right? Like there is no like attack on Jackson by the zombies, and it's, or at the very least, it's not nearly as grandiose as it is in the game. And I don't know, I'm a little conflicted on this change because on the one hand, it obviously gives Maria a better excuse to not send people after Abby's crew. Because I remember in the game, Ellie is like begging Maria to like send people to go after Abby's crew in order to get revenge for Joel, and Maria doesn't want to. I don't remember exactly what her excuse was in the game, but obviously now in the show, it's like she's gonna have a really good excuse of like, hey, we can't sacrifice anybody just to go get revenge on these guys. Like, we have to take care of our shit here. And so that is then going to give Ellie even more of an excuse to then go out and do it on her own, her and Dina. So on the one hand, it makes that make a lot more sense, but I really like about the game, I kind of like that Ellie's grief and Ellie's anger and her desire for revenge is so strong that she's willing to leave Jackson, which is this utopia, right? In the world of The Last of Us, right? This totally functioning, cushy life where like everybody, or that's just like, yeah, like I said, a utopia within the world of The Last of Us. Like the fact that she's willing to leave that and go on this pointless, stupid revenge quest, I feel like that makes that more impactful in the game. So yeah, I think it's an interesting change, and I do think it does add some of its own unique identity to it that isn't bad necessarily, but I still think I prefer the way that they do it in the game. Although to be fair, we haven't necessarily seen exactly how it's going to play out in the show either. But yeah, man, seeing all the zombies just fucking clash against the town, it was sick. And I will say this: all the changes that they made made me genuinely wonder if Tommy was gonna die. I was not entirely certain how this would play out because of all the changes that they made, with Jesse being with Ellie and Dina being with Joel, and Tommy, them adding the whole zombie invasion thing, which leaves Tommy back at Jackson. I thought all of that put me genuinely on edge, thinking that anybody could die at this point. Oh yeah, and I already mentioned that I kind of don't mind Dina being with Joel, especially because it gives her more of an excuse then to go with Ellie on the revenge quest, because she was there. She knows all of these people. She knows what they look like. She knows their names probably. So yeah, I actually don't mind Dina actually being a part of the golfing session. And again, as a part of Abby's exchange with Joel, she's just like, let me give you my backstory to make the audience more sympathetic towards me. And it's just like, I understand why you are doing this, Craig Mason, but I just don't know if I approve, because it kind of gets in the way of the point of the story of The Last of Us, but it is your decision. You are the showrunner. After all, I am just a man who yaps on the internet, so whatever. Fuck me, am I right? And I will say, the one thing that they added with Joel's death that I did actually, it definitely got me, was the addition of Ellie crawling towards Joel. Because in the game, they kill Joel and then they knock Ellie out. In the show, Manny, I think, just like kicks Ellie really hard, which sort of just like wins her and leaves her without breath. And then they all just kind of leave. And Ellie's just there like gasping, and then she starts just crawling towards Joel's corpse or whatever. That was a pretty nice touch. Like it actually did make me a little teary-eyed, because I didn't cry, mostly just because I've seen this before. But that added bit of thing, and Bella's performance was obviously incredible, as was Pedro Pascal's. I guess I should talk about the scene a little more in comparison to the game. And again, it's so hard to compare it to the game, just because I've seen the game. I don't really know what I would think of this scene if I was seeing it fresh as a virgin for the very first time. But I still think that the game was a little more impactful. I think the game was a little more intense. Just in general, the way that it was handled. Uh, but again, it's so hard for me to know like what would I think of this scene if I hadn't seen the game. So either way, it was good. It was definitely good for sure. And I think for like general audiences, I think that have never played the game, I'm sure they're going to be gobsmacked by this, even though they have telegraphed it way more than the game did, which annoys me. But yeah, and actually on that point, I will say, I've seen some people bring up a good point of like, even if you're like a part of the general audience and you know that Abby's crew is going after Joel, you're probably not going to think that they're going to succeed. It's like, oh yeah, these are just the antagonists, and they're not going to succeed because Joel, he's our main guy. He's the protagonist. So they probably were still gobsmacked by this, but yeah, we'll see. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video.